Corine La Font, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
This might be the first time I've ever opened a podcast interview with this particular type of question, but you host your own podcast and it's called Between the Lines.
That's right.
What can listeners expect from a typical episode of your podcast?
Oh, they can leave knowing that they are more empowered, more discerning, more inspired, more confident to enter into conversations on a personal level with friends, family, spouse, children, on a workplace level as well with their supervisor, boss, work colleagues, or even their, let's call them subordinates. They are better able to understand what is being said from what is, what the difference, the decoding of the language. They're able to understand communication from a very deep level because people will say things, but that's not what they mean. So there's a difference between what people say and what people mean. And there's a lot of dynamics, as we know, that happens in the workplace in terms of communication. And so we need to be able to pick up those cues, be able to understand what is really being said. And as we know, communication is not just about what is said with the mouth, it's body language, it's the aura, it's the energy, it's through different mediums, emails, text, voice notes, all sorts of different ways that we have to be able to navigate in our personal and professional lives. So I help people to decode communication, what's being said from what people really mean.
Two of your ebooks are The Author's Journey, How to Achieve Writing, Publishing, and Marketing Mastery, and Podcast, How to Build a Powerful Podcasting Platform. Mm-hmm. Without spoiling too much about those two ebooks, what are each of them about?
Well, one, as you rightfully read out, is about for authors, is helping them. The title suggests exactly what it is. Spoiler alert here, is helping you to gain mastery in writing, publishing, and marketing. So if you want to get a quick, is it 100 pages, I think, 100 and something pages worth of understanding, a quick guide in writing, publishing, and marketing, that book is for you. Same goes for the podcasting. I've been a podcaster for 13 years. Plus, I'm still going. I've had my ups and downs. I've had my points in the phase, the journey where I took a pause, come back, revamped, recalibrated, everything. And so that book on podcasting is going to help a lot of podcasters who are starting off as well as those who are established. Because even though I've been in the industry for 13 years, that doesn't make me such an expert that I know everything. I don't. I'm always learning. I'm always looking at other podcasters like you, Aaron, and other persons who are doing things that I think I could adapt for myself once it's in alignment with my values and where I want to go with my podcast, because it must make sense. It must resonate. And so persons who take up that book on becoming an author as well as the one on podcasting can help you. It's a great guide. It's in simple language. There are examples, there are references, there are personal stories in there that you can relate to.
Your other ebooks include Parenting for the Modern Family, How to Identify Toxic Relationships and Steps to Get Out of It, 30 Days of Holiday Book Marketing, and Lessons from Santa, 12 Tips and Secrets for Authors. Without spoiling too much of those books, what are each of those about?
All right. Well, let's start with the last one that you mentioned. The 12 Tips and Secrets from Santa was my very, very, very first book that I tested out when I decided to go into publishing. And it was an Amazon bestseller on the list for a while. I took it off within the last few years. I don't think it's no longer there to update it. But it's really a book about helping persons to market during the holidays. It has helped a lot of people when it was listed on Amazon because it could work for any type of holiday season. As a publisher and as an author myself, one of the marketing tips I suggest to people is to market during the holidays. Your book should be aligned with a particular time or season within the calendar year. You could even create your own holiday. You don't have to wait for a particular season that's on the calendar itself. You could create a holiday. You could do that and decide, I'm going to celebrate this day and put my book to, have my book centered around it if that's the theme of your book and what you're writing about. So don't wait on anybody to do that. But if you do use a calendar, that we use, the regular 12-month calendar, I'm sure there's a holiday that can align with your book. And so that 12 tips and secrets helps you to navigate and gives you guides and tips to how to promote during that time. So it's really a marketing center type of book. Then remind me the other two that you mentioned again. I just forgot. 30 Days of Holiday Bookmarking is a fabulous marketing book. I say fabulous because I enjoyed writing that. It's an actual plan for those authors who need something to set out. Some people have a hard time setting out a plan to how am I going to market? They're very good with writing and sitting in a corner in a quiet space and writing, but all authors challenge are is centered around marketing. And so that book, and it's actually a giveaway. I'm not selling that book. It's a giveaway. So if they go on my website, Beyond the Lines, they will see that and they could download it for free. It's fine. It gives you a 30-day plan that you could just rinse and repeat every 30 months, and adapt as you learn through the first 30 days, sorry, you can repeat again for the next 30 days and the next 30 days. So that's free. The parenting book that I've written follows along the communication, which I specialize in. I'm a communication specialist and consultant. And so it follows and it's in alignment with my podcast, Between the Lines, and helping persons to navigate and to better parent with their children. And it says modern day because back in my day, I don't know how old you are, Aaron, but back in my day, the style of communication you would have used for your children is different to what you're using now. Back then, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have a lot of the technology we have today. And so we have to be able to talk to our children differently. They're different. And so we have to move with the times. And so that book is a great guide for parents as well as for children. And it builds in, again, just like my other books on becoming an author and podcaster, it builds in examples and special nuances, especially for Black families and Caribbean culture where I live. So if you're anybody reading that is seeking that type of cultural awareness, that book is going to give you that. The one about the toxic relationship and how to get out of it, it also feeds into when you're in your personal relationships and it's toxic, which I could relate to, which is why I wrote that book. There are persons who may be in narcissistic relationships. It may not be full-blown narcissistic, but let's cover it under that category. And so how to navigate that. There are many people who are in marriages and relationships and they feel they can't get out, and I'm not suggesting for somebody to get out. I'm just saying, read the book, see if there's anything in there that, you can resonate with, you're hearing, you're seeing, you're experiencing, and it will give you some guide as how to, if you feel you have to stay, which you don't, but if you feel so, then it will help you to navigate what to do. If you decide you want to get out or ease your way out, it will help you to do that, as well as, just be you, authentically you, whatever pleases you, whatever serves you, because the main thing is to be able to be in a healthy relationship. If that's what you're seeking, that book will also help to guide you what a healthy relationship looks like from what an unhealthy relationship is.
Are your books only available in ebook format, or are some or all of your books available in other formats as well?
All ebooks, so it's easily downloadable. It's great to get on Kindle, that type of thing. My 12 tips was also on Kindle and print at the time, but like I just said, I think I removed it. It's no longer there. If you're getting it, it's probably from a third party. I don't know, and I'm not making any money off of it. But all my other books now is quick reads and easy to get. I like to keep things very simple and stress-free for people, not to make things complicated for them, you know? And waiting time will be, well, of course, it will be immediate.
What motivates you to write?
A number of things, I guess, but I just schedule some posts on LinkedIn. Let's keep it simple in terms of writing. I just schedule a post, and sometimes I'm just inspired. Well, every time I'm inspired, not sometimes. If I don't write unless I'm inspired. So all those books, your resources that we spoke about earlier, is because I'm inspired to do it. I just feel from my experience, and I'm confident in my experience and what I'm observing on social media, people complaining, people venting, the same stories. My story is not unique, it's not special to me, it's happening to everyone. But I have been fortunate to be able to get out and live a more peaceful, joy-filled life. Some people are still trying to figure that out. And so, because I've already gone ahead, I want to be able to help persons to shorten that learning curve if they're open to it. There are some people who may not want to shorten the learning curve, and it's not meant for them to shorten the learning curve. Some people just have to go through, the journey in order to learn the lesson hard and learn it well, and that's okay too. But the books will be able to probably support you on that journey and give you some hope and lift you up and give you some inspiration while you're going through it. So I do it because I want to be able to help others. I want other people to know they are not alone. I want people to know that there is support, and that they wouldn't be the last. And they too could probably write a book or share their story in some way or form that could reach somebody else. So it's like my way of paying it forward and helping somebody else. I always say I'm just trying to reach one person, just one. Because I know if that one person is reached and it makes an impact in their life, they will tell somebody else.
Are all of your ebooks independently, traditionally, or hybrid published, or did you use different publishing methods for some of your books?
No, they're all digital. They're all ebooks, non-traditional. I independently publish them myself because I am a publisher, so I know exactly what needs to be done. Um, so I did it independently. Yeah. No hybrid, just independent.
You are a communications expert. Feel free to tell us about your background as a communications expert.
Oh, I absolutely love that. So as a communication specialist and consultant, I work currently with regional organizations within the Caribbean. I also work with any individual or companies that may need me to come in. Most of the time, they may ask me to speak, or if they're having a conference or something like that, or do a workshop. But on a deeper level, I work on communication strategy internally and externally. So if an organization is having issues with reputation management, branding, um, that sort of increasing their share of voice and in terms of the space. So they might be in a particular industry. It could be travel, let's say, tourism, and they find that their competitors are gaining on them, or let's look at the other side. They may not, they may not be in the position online that they would like to be or that they should be. And so they could call in somebody like me to try and understand, do a situational analysis, stakeholder engagement, and do a sort of in-depth, like people will call it like a SWOT or pest analysis to understand what's going on and then come up with a communication strategy to positively change that over time. It's not immediate, it will be over time and consistently done. So that will happen for both internal and external, but more internal will focus on the staff and being able to look at policies, being able to look at probably staffing and that type of thing, getting the right people in the right place, because I also have a master's in human resource development. So I meld and mesh that with my communications background and experience to be able to look at, as I mentioned, policies and staffing and customer service and how people are communicating, setting a standard approach in terms of how staff should communicate with fellow staff members. What type of medium are they using? Is it just strictly email, or do they have an internal intranet, which most organizations do? And how they react and how they interface with the external, because everything is drip down from the values of the organization. So I look at their strategic goals, strategic mission and vision, where they want to go, what they want to do, how they want to be interpreted in the workplace. And that will determine the staffing, that will determine who they hire, where they place them, and how they are represented externally as well. So it's a balancing act of both.
I have a few questions about uh, communication and your work as a communications expert. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have about effective communication, and how can these misunderstandings impact their relationships or even their careers?
Uh, One of the reasons for misunderstanding is that they assume that people know what they mean. It comes back to what I was explaining about my podcast. They assume people know what they mean, and they may use a wrong way or wrong method of communicating that. So people now may use a lot of WhatsApp, in personal and in professional at workplaces. And we know things get lost in translation when you're using text as opposed to just picking up the phone and calling. Some people find it, it's faster. Then they start to use text language. They shorten things, abbreviate, or they come up with their own language, which further distorts communication as opposed to spelling everything out, punctuating as normal. So they themselves create barriers and distortion to communication. And so they assume that people know what they're saying when that is not the case. Another thing is people are not taking the time to listen. uh, People are just talking, and think that communication ends there. I send a message, that's it. But communication is two-way, or it can be multi-way. And so you have to be able to take the time to understand who you're talking to, where that person may be, what's going on with them at that particular time. They could be at family home, they could have had a death in the family. They could be going through a lot of personal issues. It's a number of things that could happen that could distort a lot of relationships and communication and impact things both personally and professionally. And just patience, just taking the time and asking clarifying questions. If you are not sure, it is best to ask. Seek clarification until you're very clear. And some people are just not patient. It comes back to that. When you start to ask questions, they find it annoying. It's like, why don't you understand? As opposed to realizing that they are not communicating in a way for you to understand, hence the reason the questions are asked. So it's a number of things that are happening at the same time. And so we have to be patient, we have to be kind, we have to be understanding, we have to listen more and talk less. As I said, that's why we have two ears and one mouth.
Many people feel stuck as what could best be described as spectators in life due to self doubt, lack of direction, fear of judgment, or other similar limiting patterns. How can people recognize and break free from limiting patterns like self doubt, lack of direction, etc.?
I like how you use that word spectators. I remember writing an article years ago about spectators versus participants. If anybody Google that, of course, they will find my name with that in the Jamaica Gleaner when I was living there at the time. And what that article speaks to is similar to what you're saying. There are people who are, if you think of a game, there are people who will be sitting in the stands, as we all have had at some point, sit in the stands, and we're looking at the people on the field playing the game. And who are the best analysts? The people who are the spectators, talking the most, telling the footballers or whoever, whatever game may be, what they should be doing. But you are sitting in the stands. You are sitting in a place where you feel you are seeing everything and you're suddenly an expert. But you're not. When you're in the field, out on that field as a footballer, you see the game, you know the game plan. you know what is expected of you and you know what to do. You're actually out there in the field, you're out in the war zone, dealing with all the things while other people are sitting, drinking, having their popcorn and hot dogs, and having a good time up in the stands. So there are people who are comfortable spectating. They are comfortable pointing fingers. They are comfortable telling everyone else what they have to do and not realizing they need to point that finger back at them and take their own advice. That's where they're comfortable. Put them in the field, put them in the hot spot, and they just can't move. They suddenly realize what's going on, and all what everybody else is saying. They actually get annoyed if things are reversed and somebody's telling them what should be done. They're like, how could you tell me what to do? You're not even in my situation, you know? So we have been on both sides of the fence, spectators and a participant at some point in our lives. And, I don't know if it is a limiting belief or something, what we could call it, but we have to be able to shift from that perspective. And it's all in the mind. And it's being able, as I say, put the shoe on the other foot, or put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You would have been on both sides, and it takes a level of awareness. It takes a level of discernment to be able to realize at some point I was sitting in the stands, at another point I was out there on the field. And I don't like it when I hear people shouting at me when I'm out there trying to get that ball in the net at the goal. It's distracting, it's whatever, whatever. And you wouldn't like if a footballer do the same to you and you're a spectator. You say, I'm enjoying the game. Do what you need to do. So it's a difficult thing to kind of answer. It only requires a level of awareness. It requires persons to, as I said, put themselves in the other person's shoes because we have all been on both sides of the fence.
What is the best advice you could offer to professionals who want to communicate more clearly and confidently in negotiations, presentations, leadership roles, or other high stakes situations and roles?
Listen intently. It's the best skill you could ever have. Sit and listen. And in listening, you're observing. In your listening, you're observing because you're sitting still and you're able to see what is going on around you, especially in high stakes negotiation. You need to be able to pick up the cues from everybody in that room. But the only way you could do that is by listening. You will hear the intonation, you will hear certain words that people will say. You will hear what they need. You will hear what they're demanding. You will hear when they're trying to take advantage of you or stick it to you. And you will decide at that point, is this something I want to go into? Is this something I need more time for? You will be breathing, focus on your breathing while you're doing that. So it's like a meditative state, but you're very aware. Because if you jump the gun and you decide to respond, you end up shooting yourself in the foot, basically. So you have to be breathing, you have to be focused, you have to be calm, you have to be not reactive, don't shoot from the hip, because that is exactly what they want from you, to say something out of turn so that they could hold it against you. But you said, and this is what you said, no, you hold back all your thoughts for after, and you don't even have to respond. The only thing you could say at the end of the meeting is, I need some time to think about this. And you take the time to think and you come back and you could put your response in writing. You don't have to even vocalize it if you don't wish to. So it's really being able to have that self-control. And the only way to have that self-control is by breathing, by listening intently and reading the room, observing what's going on. That puts you in a better position to be able to get what you want out of it or have a win-win situation.
Corine, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were an amazing guest.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I appreciate the time.
This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.